It's a world away from being able to choose your haircut, from not being called Kim, from not being able to use the internet between North and South Korea. Make yourself comfortable. Here is how the North Koreans live and how their enemy brothers, the South Koreans, live. Immersion in a hell on earth. If you ever visited South Korea, you will have noticed that it has some of the most beautiful buildings and impressive constructions in the world. These include the floating island of Seoul, the Saetgang Bridge, and the Jongro Millennium Tower. So you can guess that all South Koreans enjoy their country, regardless of their social class or where they live. Would you like to take a look at their neighbors to see how they separate the social classes? Be prepared to be amazed. In North Korea, there are no rich and poor classes. Rather, there is a system specifically set up to separate the 3.5 million privileged people who live in Pyongyang from the rest of the rabble who are free to live elsewhere. These are the best educated, harmonious, hard-working citizens who enjoy a modern life in a city of breathtaking architecture. They are entitled to health services, a wide choice of food, and recreation. They even have access to certain technological tools with special permits. A dream come true. I'll let you guess what the rest of the people live in. I feel a bit stifled all of a sudden. I bet you do too, don't you? You're lucky that in France, nobody will accuse you of having taken too many baguettes for dinner and that there is no difference between the rich and the poor. You have always admired Koreans for their sense of citizenship and their intelligence. They have been educated from a very young age to respect others, to surpass themselves, and to live together. In short, you have understood they are aces in this field, unbeatable in this respect. However, if it is not obvious, there are some differences between the education of South Koreans and North Koreans. Do you want to know what I'm talking about? You will be surprised. In South Korea, whether you are rich or poor, you are educated in the same way. The country offers a very high level of education, whether in private or public schools, all of which offer a quality education which is open to all cultures of the world. In contrast, the education system in North Korea, although multidisciplinary, is highly centralized and controlled by the state, which is accused of being based on hate and discriminatory propaganda. The system educates children to be revolutionary little soldiers who would die for their country. It makes them watch each other's backs and feeds their hatred of foreigners. Are you disgusted to know that innocent little Koreans are being brainwashed? That's normal. Now recognize how lucky you are not to be one of them. You've just landed in North Korea and the first thing on your mind is to let your mom know you've arrived. You look for Wi-Fi or 4G coverage, but you can't find any. You ask someone in awkward English where you can find internet. This person then explains that there is no internet in their country. And to make matters worse, it is strictly forbidden to contact anyone from abroad. You can understand why very few people have their noses buried in their phone screens as they do everywhere else in the world. And while we're on the subject of telephones, only 10% of the population has one. A sort of gadget that reminds us of the talkies of yesteryear. You'd swear that time has stood still here. Unlike South Korea, which does not prohibit its population from opening up to the world. Again, this is a decision by Kim Jong-un, who thinks that in order to keep the population under his orders effectively, he should prevent them from seeing what is happening elsewhere so as not to wake up the sleeping devil. So hardly anyone is allowed to access the internet, and if you want to use a computer, it's only with special permission that only a few members of the North Korean elite have. And even if you have one in your hands, don't expect to use social networks. You'll be directed instead to a kind of intranet called Kwangmyong, a closed and monitored network that only gives access to North Korean propaganda sites and to your emails. The bad news is that it will be a nightmare to warn your mother by email, but the good news is that you will have more free time during your stay. Your sister has just had a baby with her North Korean husband, and she decides to call him Kim, a name that her husband categorically refuses. When she asks her why, she learns that since 2011, when Kim Jong-un solemnly became supreme leader, North Korean newborns are no longer allowed to be called Kim because no one can be like him or have the same name. What the hell? Your sister is a bit disappointed because she liked the name so much. Now she has two choices: either move and leave North Korea for good to South Korea, where the problem will never arise because they have complete freedom to choose their first names or change her first name. But it's true that when she was reminded that the North Korean dictator was called Kim, she suddenly got cold feet. She finally decided to call her son Julius, unless Julius Caesar decides to rise from the grave. You're in North Korea for some sightseeing and you ask your instructor if there's a church nearby. A little prayer is always good. He tells you straight out that it is forbidden to show any ostentatious religious sign, because even if theoretically North Korea follows its sister country in the South when it comes to religion, and in principle, you have the right to practice the religion you want. When it comes to practice, the North Koreans are not kidding at all. In their country, religious freedom is a non-existent concept. The state aims to drastically eradicate all believers or even convert them to atheist ideology. In case you refuse to follow them, they could imprison you, banish you, or deport you to a place isolated from the rest of the world. In fact, since the communist regime was established in 1953, several 100,000 religious people have disappeared overnight. Does all this frighten you? Well, if you believe very strongly in God, you can always try a little prayer. And going to heaven is not so bad compared to what you leave here. You go to North Korea on a professional mission, because I don't know why else you would go there, and you decide to rent a car on arrival. The nice man who takes care of your trip tells you that in North Korea, there are no cars for citizens. You are shocked and desperately try to find out why, even though it won't get you out of your predicament. He tells you that the state forbids North Koreans to own or drive a car. And he is not lying to you, because there are no traffic lights or signs on the horizon. Only the elected representatives of the Communist Party and the friends of Kim Jong-un have the right to own a motorized vehicle. How fair is that? You are exasperated. You who would have liked to be sent instead to South Korea, where people are free to move around as they wish, in luxury cars, on rollerblades, or even on camels. You swallow your anger and take the road to your hotel, suitcase in hand and on foot. You love South Korean culture and especially their sense of aesthetics. The girls do what they want with their bodies, the boys are creative with their looks, and everyone dares to do everything. But unfortunately for you, you are in North Korea today, and you need to get a haircut because tomorrow you have a very important business meeting. When you arrive at the hairdresser's, before you even start to explain what you want as a haircut, he makes you shut up by showing you a poster with several models of haircuts. It seems that the North Koreans don't have any luck except for the haircut. In fact, in North Korea, they are not allowed to be called Kim, but they must have the same haircut as their beloved leader. Apart from knowing how to handle nuclear weapons, he will also know how to take care of your hair. If you are a woman, you have the right to choose between 18 haircuts, and if you are a man, your hairdresser Kim Jong-desange has selected for you an array of 8 haircuts. Not trendy. So forget long hair, layers, dreadlocks, or coloring. It's going to be more of a flat black, shaved on the sides and long on the top of the head, or even worse, parted in the middle. All this again with the aim of turning his citizens into real little tin soldiers, neatly fitted into the communist mold he has created. Citizens who will never risk drifting into Western culture. So you have no choice but to look like an angry aubergine. But look on the bright side, at least your hair will be refreshed. You love South Korea and the dream of living there for a few years, just to get some good work experience. What's more, the job market is full of tempting offers. It is said that employees there are fulfilled, valued, and paid very well. But unfortunately, of all the applications you sent, only one company in North Korea contacted you to come and work as a mechanic, not as an auditor, since that's your favorite field. No, you're not dreaming. In North Korea, it's not you who chooses your job, but the state which does it for you. If you go to North Korea and want to climb to the top of the professional world and become a great leader, wake up from your dreams and come down from your cloud. You will have to do the same job as your father or mother, and don't even think about the possibility of retraining. Consider yourself lucky to have the right to work for a salary. Oh yes, by the way, you don't have the right to retire because when the state assigns you a job, it's until death. Are you shocked? Then change your mind and ask your boss for a raise instead. After all, your little office shared with your colleague Marco is not bad. You are a big fan of K-pop, and your biggest dream is to go to a BTS concert in South Korea and then maybe afterwards to go to North Korea to discover their musical culture. As a music lover, you are open to all musical cultures. Except that there is a small false note. If in South Korea, the country is full of pretty living dolls and handsome brunettes with straight hair who sing along to danceable music influenced by Western and contemporary culture. In North Korea, things are, let's say, slightly different. Indeed, since it was split in two after the war, Korean music, which initially was the same music resulting from a mixture of Chinese and Japanese influence, has also been divided into two genres. Today, South Korean music tends to be more Western, while North Korean music comes from the influence of the communist sphere as traditional as possible. And believe me, even if they don't look like it, they are having a great time. The singing, dancing, and music of North Korea is still impregnated with ancestral customs. Just look at their outfits and their choreographies. I feel you don't have the head to party anymore. Well, the good thing is, I have saved you from going to North Korea for nothing. So what do you think of life in North Korea? Could you live there? Tell us your opinion in the comments, and if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss any of our upcoming content.